Uh, are you ready for the sprint after the marathon here?
Oh, I am so ready. 13 more days to go. Um, just gonna, push as hard as I can till we get to November 5th and let the chips fall where they may. Just hoping to get my message out to a lot of the Central District who may not know who I am at this point. So
Uh, I guess let's start with why you're running. Why did
okay.
you decide? I mean, you've been a vocal leader on a lot of fronts in the community, but like, why take this next step to running for council?
So it goes back to something I've said a long time as the president of youth lacrosse. Telling people before you complain, have you volunteered yet? So I've been pretty vocal the last couple of years after watching what's been going on. And it came up time, put up or shut up. So luckily, with the support of my wife, my kids are older now. I have one in college, two in high school. With the youth sports stuff starting to fade a little bit, the wife gave the blessing and figured maybe I can make a difference this way now. So legit last minute driving home from Maine on the last day to pull papers, we stopped at City Hall and got the papers. So the thought was, let's give this a shot. Let's see if I can just make a difference this way now.
But that wasn't like a spur of the moment thing. That was just you really thinking it out before you jumped in.
There's always been we joked about it in 2017, and the wife at that point was like, "You got too much on your plate." So 2 years later, not as much on my plate. I'm still running youth lacrosse, still involved with the MAIC, but I'm not on the sidelines as much anymore, unfortunately. So things kind of aligned. So it was all right. Let's give this a shot and let's see what we can do. So
So you're in it.
yeah,
You had a very good showing in the primary.
yeah,
Did that surprise you?
absolutely. The joke was with my committee. I got a couple of great friends who helped me out with this. That I could, I could have finished anywhere between second and fifth. If I had come in fifth that day, I wouldn't have been surprised. We were sitting in the lobby of the Timony, and my wife, Pete Cozell, and myself, and we're literally like with our phones calculating stuff. And all of a sudden, before the last district came in, I'm like, "Holy crap!" Like, looking at the number, like, I'm in second. And then, one of those things where you're trying to be humble. You're sitting there, and everybody's there in the lobby. Jimmy's there, Jordan, Joyce's husband's there, and DJ was there. So we're
Yep.
calculating the numbers, and I'm in second, and I want to go crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. Yep, good job. And I walked to the stadium parking lot where my car was, and I was just like chest bumped. I'm like, oh my God, like this is real. And then, it's like you get so excited, and then it's like you win the AFC Championship game. And you're like, oh crap! But wait a minute, I've got a big one now in 2 months. So it was short lived because now you got to refocus and hit the pavement and do all the stuff you need to do. Because as great as I did there, coming in second as the first time, there's still a lot of people that see me and don't really know who I am. If you have kids, most likely you know who I am. But if you have kids that are older than mine, or maybe just don't have kids and just moved to Methuen, it's just who's the big guy with the beard knocking on doors. So, I'm more than just that, as people want to label me. The jockhead living through my kids and doing all that. Not even close to that. That's just I was lucky enough to have the time and the support to be able to be on sidelines and coach my children and have those memories that will live on forever. And now I'm continuing to do that with kids that aren't mine, and it's just as rewarding. So now it's time to take that next step, I guess.
So since I've known you to be a very good promoter of causes and of in finding creative ways to get people to volunteer to be active in the community. How has this been different in terms? So everything else you've been doing has been promoting something else, a cause. How has this been different? Like promoting yourself.
It's huge because what's yeah, it's easy when you're promoting a project like the stadium, or you're promoting Pop Warner football, and you're trying to get teams to Florida, or you're promoting lacrosse, and able to do things that are getting the word out about a sport or an activity or whatever. Now I'm talking about myself a lot, and it's okay, but it's and what's tough too is you don't want to also you want to build up yourself, and you don't want to sound petty and knock the other candidates, because when push comes to shove, DJ, Joyce, Jimmy, and myself all put your name out there. There's not a lot of rewards out of this. We may differ on a lot of different things that are going on in the city, but in the end, we all feel what we believe in is what's best for Methuen going forward. So you want to be as positive as you can, and you don't want to get dragged into, the crap that really turns people off. You want to let people know who you are, what you stand for, and let them make choices on that, not because you're trashing another candidate and you're not putting other people down. So that's the hardest thing.
So it's one thing to say that as a commenter watching the election process.
Right.
Now you're in it. How is that harder or different in terms of not
absolutely.
Not focusing on the others versus
absolutely.
yourself?
Because we all have our ideas on how we feel we can move the city forward. But then there's also things that other people have done, myself included, that maybe contradict what we're saying, or people will say, well, back in 2015 you did this, or so it is, because as much as you want to promote the forward, there is a track record. We all have track records of what we've said or what we've done that people need to be aware of, and that's part of being an educated choice. You can say things and you can put things out there that people have done that's public record, or what they've done and that they've put out there themselves, and let people make those choices from that. So like I knock on doors, and a lot of the things people ask are you an incumbent? And I'm a first-time runner. So I know DJ is a first-time runner for city council, but he's also run 3 times for school committee. So those are, that's something, people ask. I'm like, no, I'm the only one running in this race right now that's never held public office.
You can point out facts without disparaging the others, right?
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, and when I've had conversations with DJ, Joyce, and Jimmy, we've had our debates and we've had our forums. It's been nothing but civil and cordial. And Joyce and I were holding signs at 5 corners, and they were bees. And she's helping out. And when she found out about the issue with my daughter, when it came to a ballot, she's like, hold on, and gave us a phone number and told us who to call. So it's very hard to you don't want to start slinging mud and doing all that stuff when everyone's been really professional. And it's made my first experience in this particular race positive. Never mind, apart from everything else that's been going on through some of the other races and all that.
So in the fact that you all have run above board campaigns for the most part, I don't know all the inside politics, but how do you differentiate yourself in the middle of all that?
So I think the biggest thing to differentiate myself is going about sticking to why I'm running and what my visions are when it comes to certain things that I've seen in the community. That's why I'm running and what I want to change. I have a big, obviously, the sports background, but I see how different departments are run just in that small section, and imagine that it continues in bigger scales in other departments. When it comes to their DPW, when it comes, where we're staffing a stadium during the day while nobody's there, and then paying overtime while it's being used. When the city council passes a 7-point ordinance to fund a $4.6 million project, but there's never any follow through to make sure those 7 points are followed through, to make sure that the bond is paid properly, and then there's money also to take care of maintenance when that time comes up in that facility. So those are the things that I want to promote, that when something comes to the city council, if it's involving any sort of borrowing that involves follow through, that we make sure it gets followed through. It just happened, on this current city council about a month ago. The CAFO came to the council, asked for the $1.05 million for the software. Well, the money's been, it came from a $2.5 million bond that came through in 2017 that's been sitting there. Like, if something comes to the city council, we borrow a large chunk of money that now we're only going to pay that back with interest, it's on us to follow through with the mayor's office to make sure. And if the mayor's office or economic development or whoever's in charge of that money being spent, if they're not going, holding them accountable, whether it's behind closed doors or if we're not getting the answer to that, bring it to the floor and make sure that the public knows that we are going to make sure that if we're going to borrow this money, it's going to be used for the proper reasons and used in a timely manner. So we don't have this situation of money just sitting there useless. So we probably could have taken care of the elevator situation a lot sooner if we, you know, use that 2.5 million within a few months, come up with a game plan. Here's your list of issues that we need to address, and let's get it done instead of, waiting.
A lot of the things that I've heard you say throughout the campaign, it seems like you feel, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that we need to do a better job scaling up our city departments and organizational, um, as we grow into the city that we are.
Correct.
Is that accurate to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's easy from the outside to say, and I may be proven wrong on some of this as I get more information, if I'm lucky enough to get voted on and the books are open. But I feel like, there needs to be accountability from every department. I think an outside audit, starting with our larger departments and working our way through to find out where our resources are being spent, where they can be, if there's ways to streamline certain things. That way we have money to take care of certain issues. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Like, Lynn Vidler was on the floor for months trying to just get a simple list of vehicles that the city owned in order so we had and we couldn't get that. But that comes from the top down too, as well. You need to have a mayor and a city council who are able to to work together. And so if a city councilor is asking for a list like that, the mayor's got to be on board, and you got to work with the mayor and all those department heads and bring that together. If we don't know what we have as a fleet, now you're paying insurance, you're paying tags, you're paying all that stuff on those vehicles. We could be wasting tens of thousands of dollars on registering and insuring vehicles that aren't even on the road anymore. So, those are the little things that, as I've seen as a citizen paying attention, that really kind of frustrate me a little bit when it comes to if I'm able to see these wastes in these departments, just little things like that. I imagine there must be more, but we need to be able to figure that out. And I think that independent audits, going through department by department and find that out where that waste is, because
it seems like you have a lot of when I hear the budget discussions, that there's a lot of protecting budgets. Every department's trying to protect their budgets instead of it being, like you said, going through and who needs what and how was this properly spent and
right.
Where do we reallocate funds. It just seems like it's a constant protecting your budget, which I get.
Right. Every department's going to want as much money as feasibly possible, so they feel like they can run their department. Whether it's for an overtime or whether it's for vehicles, whatever that is, every department head is going to go and ask for the moon and stars, so that makes sure they have what they need. But there also needs to, because of the way a budget works municipally, like, you need to be able to. There's only so much money. We're not. We need to be able to live within that $169 million budget, and right now we're not. Living within that budget also means banking money and putting money aside, so that way when things do come up, we have those funds. And right now we're not living within that, and if we're not bringing in new revenue, we need to figure out. We need to live within that budget, and that may mean a couple of cuts here or there. But I think working with departments and using a sports analogy, you got a salary cap. You've got $12 million in your budget. You need to figure out how to make it work. And now, if you want to pay you're paying somebody an extraordinary amount of money, that's going to trickle down. So, it's always it's the boots on the ground that are always the ones that get hurt in the end. And you see those issues everywhere. With the police department right now. The uptick in crime in the Arlington district. Linda Susie, I think, did a great job down in the city council for talking about different things they've done in the past that have worked, but those have kind of went away. Where we are right now financially, we're not putting a substation down there. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. But if we can get the police contract straightened out with the superiors, now we might have more money to be able to put more officers on the street, increase patrols, and try to attack it that way. Because what we're doing right now, unfortunately, we're outmanned on the streets, it seems.
How do you, in terms of, there seems to just be you mentioned it earlier in terms of the disconnect between the executive branch and the city council at this point. What do you bring to the table that can help elevate that relationship and have a better working relationship?
Just how I've been recently, in the last few years. I know it's a much smaller scale, obviously, when it comes to youth sports. We're all volunteers or whatever. But being able to reach out to those other organizations, like I have a great, when lacrosse came on, we were the redheaded stepchild pushed to the side. But being able to work with soccer and work out, be able to come out schedule so we could share the same fields, talking to baseball. Hey, let's schedule things these nights so that way kids have these opportunities. It's just being able to go to a table and have a discussion with somebody and come to a compromise, and not being able to say, well, this is my stance. I'm not budging off of it, and then just
Deal
leaving
with
it there. Exactly. I'm not budging. Well, there needs
Yeah.
to be some compromise. There's compromise in everything in life. I've been married 21 years. I compromise way more than I probably would like to, but it's what you need to do, and that's not a knock on your integrity if you come to the table and you have a belief, and then after talking to the other side, coming to an agreement that works for everybody. That's not your integrity. That's just being able to have an adult conversation with somebody, see their side, them see your side, and then be able to come to hopefully a middle ground. And then in the end, what works best is everyone in Methuen wins by that, instead of ending up in a situation where it becomes just a he said, she said, because of, pissing match pretty much. So
Some folks would say, because you are very vocal, you have been very vocal on social media. Your critics will say that you're hot-headed, that you oftentimes lack a filter.
okay.
How do you address that in terms of bringing that civility and civil discussion and debate to the council floor?
Okay. So yeah, I'm passionate, and I'm not where I am now because that's just who I am, and I was able to get to where I am by being that way. But I'm not going to be disrespectful. So, I can be on social media and I can get heated back and forth. We can do that. But if you've ever come to one of my a board meeting that I've been involved in, or you've seen me on the sidelines, or that's not. There's a time and a place where you can have those discussions and they can get heated. But in the end, you've got to be you got to be able to shake hands at the end. You and I could have a huge disagreement about something, and it could get heated. But in the end,
We have.
yes, we have. But in the end, if you're passionate about something, I'm passionate about something, and they want to be different, that's okay. But it's in the end being able to kind of then let it get it out, boom, and then sit down, let it calm down, have that discussion, you shake hands at the end. So I am going to be passionate about certain things. I'm very passionate about the youth sports. And Joyce in her debate the other day said, we've never had the door slammed in our face. I'm going to disagree on that because we've tried to go to the city council, and the youth sports have tried to have keys. Let us manage the facility, and instead we have, a DPW workers getting time and a half or double time on a Sunday, and then another recreation or somebody from the recreation department there just walking around, following us around like a puppy. And anytime something happens, they take a little picture and they send it. And we get a picture and a text. Look at this. Treat us like adults. We spent a lot of time to make sure that facility was built. The last thing we are going to do is, let it
Dump
get
on
ruined.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
In terms of the issues that you are hearing the most, like when you're doing the door knocking,
right.
and you're talking to voters in Central,
Right.
what are the issues that are most important specifically to the Central right now?
I think it depends on what part of the Central you're at. I live right near Oakland Ave, so it's not. I think the crime and concern about that has been that I knock on doors there, and it still all comes back to it's been 2+ years. It's still the police budget, so people are still talking about it, and unfortunately, there's no. I don't see until all the dominoes fall when it comes to the IG report, and you've got your arbitration hearings and you have all that. It's hard. Like everything's out there right now, and it's a waiting game at this point. I don't think, the unions aren't coming back to the table at this point. Especially with the mayor having about 60 days left in his term, he shouldn't be negotiating a deal at this point. So I think we need to let the arbitration hearing happen, let the election go through, and then we'll see the process there. If they end up coming back to the table, well, hopefully, to make something work that works for everybody.
Where do you stand in terms of how we should negotiate contracts moving forward with the unions?
So,
like should the mayor be doing it? Should there be a different way of negotiating?
I think the mayor should be part of the conversation, but he shouldn't be the lead at that point. The mayor should be part of it. The CAFO needs to be part of it, and your city solicitor needs to be part of that as well. Um, I think the steps are in place already. We just need to make sure those steps are followed. I think we saw that a couple weeks ago when Chief Sheehy came to the podium. He had a couple of promotions. Like, we've just went through this whole thing about not having financial impact statements, not having all the facts, and he has to do the math at the podium to explain to the city council that there is a $7,000 net savings. That should have been done beforehand, hit into the council, and done. And I think we need to make sure that anytime with a financial impact is coming to the council, those documents need to be there.
It does get frustrating as a viewer, right, or as just an observer.
Right.
Is that part of what made you run? Just in the fact that we just can't even seem to follow simple things.
Yes, and there's been numerous times where I'd be sitting at home watching a council meeting, and if I had my remote in my hand, it probably would have been through my television at that point. There's no need for 4-hour meetings, and to me, it looks like because the council is so split at this point, there's not a lot of discussions happening behind closed doors when it comes to those groups, that a lot of it is done on the floor where if the council was more civil with each other, I think a lot of those discussions happen behind closed doors, and then the discussion on the floor is much smaller, right to the points, the facts are there, and then the vote happens, where right now people are being tuned out. Like 45 minutes discussion on the cameras in the Arlington district last night, or Monday night, not necessary. And I think people get frustrated watching those meetings. So definitely frustration was one of the reasons why I decided to get involved.